All right, and we back on the forecast. Now, I don't know how many things is going to take for our people to come together, how much history, how many tragic circumstances, how many same results is going to take for the group of people who's all experiencing the same tragedy together to come together and say, I'm not going to take it anymore. What will it take for our people to get out of a tribalism mindset? That's one thing that the white race has been able to do. They have been able to overcome tribalism and to come together under the banner of white. Now, it don't matter who you are, what you do, who you think your friends are. It's the same story.
Well, Mike, late this afternoon, we talked with that wounded off-duty officer's attorney Rufus Tate. He says that the officer walked outside of his home where the incident ended, identified himself as an officer, and followed the officer's commands.
We have a police officer standing in his own yard who's outside because he hears the commotion, sees the car crash in front of his neighbor's house right in the same block, and he comes out, is in a conversation with some of the officers that are on the scene pursuing the stolen car, and he winds up getting shot.
The attorney for the wounded 38-year-old African-American St. Louis police officer is making strong statements after police investigators say they shot one of their own.
This happens to be the first time in the national discourse that we're aware of a black professional or a law enforcement officer himself being shot or treated as an ordinary black guy on the street. And we can see that this is a real problem.
Detectives say it all unfolded around 10 last night when the license plate recognition system in downtown St. Louis spotted a car stolen from Maryland Heights last week. Officers used spike strips to stop the vehicle in North St. Louis. The three people in the car fired shots at officers. Police pursued the vehicle. The vehicle then stopped near Park and Astra, where more shots were fired.
Why are they chasing a stolen car all over town in these high-speed chases? They're always going to wind up in some kind of crash.
We're told the off-duty officer who lives in the area came outside of his home armed with his department-issued weapon and was ordered to the ground by two officers. The officers recognized the off-duty officer and told him to stand and walk toward them. Meanwhile, a 36-year-old white male officer just arriving on the scene did not recognize the off-duty officer. He told city police investigators he feared for his safety, so he fired a shot hitting the off-duty officer in the arm.
And in the police report that you have so far, there's absolutely no description of any type of threat he perceived. And so we have a real problem with that. But it also presents a bigger problem that's been a course of national discussion for the past 2 years. That is this perception that a black man is automatically to be feared.
Now, the off-duty officer that was shot in the arm is expected to make a full recovery. Meanwhile, a 17-year-old male suspect was also shot and wounded by officer. He's also expected to make a full recovery. Two suspects are in custody while one remains at large.
All right, so, now they fear their own safety from other police officers who happen to be black. So if you don't have your damn uniform on, then obviously you're just another nigga. Still nigga. And that's the thing about the whole military thing. They were getting on fucking Kaepernick about the military. What about the black soldiers who fought? Like they ever gave a damn about the black soldiers who fought. The dude who wrote the national anthem probably had slaves when he came home. Probably the same slaves who fought in the war with him under false pretenses that they were going to get their freedom. Because that's one lie George Washington told. Every war America has ever had, all of them, because America has had a lot of wars. Right before war, they happen to be friendly with black people. They try to pass quote unquote laws and rights and as if they're doing something special. And then after the war, they go back on their word every single time. Now, when I say we should be cops and the lawyers and judges and all of that stuff, when I'm talking about cops, I don't mean cops like Sheriff David Clark, dudes like him. I'm talking about people from the community, in the community, and we policing each other. And we passing our own laws and doing our own thing. That's the point of taking control of our local communities. so we can protect ourselves. Now, this black cop at home, not working, finally get off work, and he hears, a high speed chase where the cop or the car crashes right by his home, and he come out and try to help the officers. And of course, he's a black dude with a gun. What are you thinking? You don't have your badge on right now. You kind of forgot where you was. And if you don't got your uniform on, you fit the description right now, bruh. Don't you realize that? And of course, this cop hit the, our fear for my safety routine, but, they're going to wear that out. They have to come up with some, original. They're not very clever for people who to claim they have such high IQs. They don't really come up with like new strategies. They just do the same old thing and try to recycle the same old garbage, the same old talking points, the same old excuses. How could you fear for your safety if it was two other officers on the scene who had the situation under control before you got there, and then you pull up shooting talking about you fearing for your safety? The same old story, big bad black man about to hurt you even though you're the one with the guns and two other officers with you. And they brainwash themselves and everybody else that all of this bullshit could possibly be true. When obviously, when you look at it, when it's the other way around, they realize it's not right. They are mad about it. They are upset about it. And they know exactly what they are doing. And we got to start knowing what the hell we're doing. It's no reasoning with them. They let all of this happen because of greed. All of this was born out of greed, and it continues out of greed. When it came to slavery, black people made the most money because they were able to go out there and pick the cotton because, their skin gave them protection from the sun. And they made the most money because they can work all day. Black culture makes them money because the whole world loves it. The whole world wants to be a part of it. The whole world listens to it, appreciates it. We just ain't the ones that's making the money off of it, which is a problem in itself. Africa in itself has the most natural resources. The world needs the resources in Africa to sustain itself. You wouldn't even have your cell phones if it wasn't for Africa, because they need the material that comes from Africa to build it. All the nations in the world trying to get in on Africa and its people. Everybody except for us. We have to educate ourselves. And, if we've bought into the European education, uneducate ourselves and then re-educate ourselves. Because while we look at these cops and say, oh, well, you're racist, you saw me as a threat because I'm a black person, it's been instilled in all of us. Anybody, you could be white or black. Just close your eyes and imagine walking down the street. It could be 12 in the afternoon and it's 3 or 4 black dudes walking together. God forbid they have dreads or anything. They could just have a white t-shirt on and they walking past you. Are you thinking, well, shit, am I going to have to fight these dudes? Should I fucking punch them in the face? Should I grip my fucking purse tighter? Are you thinking some negative thoughts or positive thoughts? Now, let it be 3 white people, 3 or 4 white people, except, if they have like tattoos on their face or something, walking down the street past you, you won't have them same thoughts. Now, what the hell do you think the police think? But they have a license to kill, and they're paid by taxpayer dollars, so I'm paying the police salary to fucking harass me. But that's a mindset that our people have to get rid of too. After generations of hearing the same nonsense, people generally tend to believe it. And of course, we understand that most of the shit we find out when we truly investigate it is a complete lie. So why shouldn't we question anything they say? We need to be asking for sources, because when they were saying, well, black people are 3/5 human, we need a source for that. When they're saying if a black person runs away from slavery, that means he's mentally ill, we need a source for that. I'm not just taking what they say without sources. You're going to have to show sources, because most of the shit you said in the past has been a complete lie when you actually do a little bit of research into it. So I'm not just going to take those words. And our people shouldn't. We should understand the shit for ourselves. We just need to re-educate ourselves and learn the truth about everything. The truth about history, the truth about everything.
374 slow them down.
It was a tense scene in upstate New York last April as Ramapo police can be seen on dashcam video approaching a car filled with 4 passengers wearing bulletproof vests. Guns drawn, all signs pointed to a serious situation.
All other units with caution. All other units with caution.
The video shows one person getting out of the car with his hands up. Minutes later, audio from a second dash camera reveals the situation is not what it appears.
Hey, all units that are not at that location, you can disregard.
The car's occupants are 4 New York State parole officers out executing a search warrant. Those officers say they were stopped because they are African American.
There's no doubt if I was Caucasian that I would not be standing here.
All 4 officers say they immediately identified themselves to Ramapo police, were wearing their shields, and offered to show identification.
No matter what we did to show or verify that we were, the aggressive treatment continued.
I was violently pulled out of the vehicle, and I was slim against the vehicle.
The parole officers filed a civil suit against the Ramapo Police Department and the city, alleging their civil rights were violated.
They were assaulted and battered at gunpoint. Mario Alexandre was dragged out of his government vehicle.
Despite the allegations, the dashcam video made public by police does not appear to show parole officer Mario Alexander being slammed against a vehicle.
Now, at what point were you assaulted or battered?
Well, assault in the civil context of the law is being threatened with force. That's an assault.
Ramapo police say they made the stop because they were responding to this 911 call.
And I saw just a plain Chevy Malibu, is that what it was? An Impala car with 4 big people get out of it, and I thought they had bulletproof vests and shields on.
The 911 caller did not identify any of you by race.
We can only go at the moment from the tape that was released by the people that we are suing.
Ramapo police referred CNN to the city's attorney, who says the actions of the police officers involved were reasonable under the circumstances. There was a 911 call indicating suspicious activity. The attorney also says the parole officers had not notified the police they would be in town, a common courtesy, and were allowed on their way promptly after they were identified. Neither the parole officers nor their attorney would say how long they were held, but they were clear on how they felt they were treated.
City firefighter says that he thought the Oakland police officer was going to pull the trigger. Today he told us how it all tensely unfolded. Dial in with the story you're going to only see on KPIX5. Doc?
Alan, it happened right here, Station 29 in East Oakland. A rookie police officer stopped an off-duty firefighter and his 2 kids at the station, thinking they were burglars. The firefighter says the entire incident traumatized his 2 young sons, and he truly believes this happened because he's black. It was 10:45 at night after a recent Raider scheme. Veteran firefighter Keith Jones and his 9 and 12-year-old kids were walking back to their SUV at Station 29. A fire crew responding to a fire forgot to close the garage door. Jones went to make sure everything was okay. As he walked out, a white officer responding to a possible burglary in progress yelled, "Don't move, put your hands up."
And his hand is on his gun. He was crouched, he was low, and he was basically in a shooting stance.
Jones complied, but noticed his 9-year-old was starting to cry. The officer saw the 2 kids first and had already told them to raise their hands.
Sir, my name is Keith Jones. I'm an Oakland firefighter. I work here. Those are my kids. Could you please allow them to put their hands down and let them know that it's okay? In which he looked at me, told me, keep your hands up and don't move.
Jones says this lasted for a few minutes.
I'm pretty much thinking he's going to shoot me.
I was thinking, is he going to shoot my dad the whole time?
I was getting ready about to cry, but My hands started to get tired, but I kept them up.
Finally, the lone officer allowed Jones to reach into his pocket and show his firefighter ID. Jones says the incident traumatized his kids and changed their perception on police officers.
Images in my head, thinking about how my dad would have got shot, and so I keep on trying to forget about it, because it scares me a lot.
I think they view black males as a threat.
Don Cameron isn't involved in the case, does not work for OPD, but trains police officers. He says the new officer was following protocol.
Well, I don't think it had anything to do with race at all. I think the officer just, hey, I've got a burglary in progress.
The police trainer says the officer should have at least apologized, though, to the firefighter and the two kids. Now, this incident has gone so serious, the fire chief apparently called the police chief about this. In fact, Jones filed a complaint against that police officer. OPD is confirming the incident but would not comment on it. Live in Oakland, I'm Dahlin, KPIX 5.
Oakland police do say the entire incident was caught on the police officer's wearable body camera they put right about here. Internal Affairs is now reviewing this complaint.
Put the bag down. Get your hands up. Get your hands up. Turn around.
I'm an Oakland firefighter. I seen our apparatus door open. I walked through the station. I'm an Oakland firefighter. That's my truck right there. See the KJ in the front? See the firefighter plates?
Stay right there. Don't move. (3L26B) code 34, code 4. Can you copy a plate for me?
I got my city ID in my back pocket.
It's going to be California Personal King John Adam Yellow. It's all right. It's all right. 3L26. You can slow everyone else down.
Must have left it open on the run.
ID, please.
Can I go in my back pocket?
Who else is in here?
Nobody. It's just me. I walked through the station to make sure.
Yes, just do me a favor real quick. Lift your hands up as high as you can and turn around for me one time. All right, yeah, reach in your back pocket and grab it. What's your name?
Keith Jones.
3L26 cop.
No one's in here. I walked through the station. The door was wide open, and I know they probably went on a run and left it wide open.
Okay.
So all I was doing was going to shut the door and secure the premises and leave.
You work here?
A 58-year-old black man was arrested at his own home by police looking for a suspected robber. The story grabbed national headlines because the man in question is one of the nation's most prominent African-American scholars. Our national correspondent Jim Axelrod has more.
This is not how Henry Louis Gates is used to being seen in public, handcuffed and being taken away by the police.
Will it lead to the mediocrats changing the subject?
This is perhaps America's best-known African-American intellectual and director of Harvard's African-American Research Institute. Gates was arrested for disorderly conduct last Thursday at his home in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Gates arrived here at his home early last Thursday afternoon after a long plane flight from China. He arrived to find his front door jammed, so he and his driver tried to push their way through. A passerby in this neighborhood, where there's been a rash of break-ins, called the police. The sergeant who responded found Gates in his foyer. In a police report, the sergeant says Gates refused to step outside, asking why. Because I'm a black man in America? Gates showed his Harvard ID, but became angry, he says, when the sergeant refused to provide his name and badge number. The sergeant says he did, twice, but that Gates was belligerent. After repeatedly warning Gates to calm down, the sergeant says, he arrested him.
You had two human beings that were reacting to a set of circumstances, and unfortunately at the time cooler heads did not prevail.
In an interview with the Washington Post today, Gates called his arrest outrageous, how poor black men across the country are treated every day. Gates said the sergeant should apologize. This guy had this whole narrative in his head. Black guy breaking and entering. Harvard's had its share of racial problems recently, appointing an independent commission last fall to study how the university could create a more welcoming environment for African Americans.
Even though the charge was dropped, I know for me it still leaves a pretty bad taste in the mouth.
The charges against Gates were dismissed today. Despite his criticism of the police, Gates and the Cambridge PD issued a joint statement calling the incident, quote, regrettable. one that shouldn't demean the reputation of either side.
Has a St. Mark's Church. Hold here.
All right. I got my.
On the ground! On the ground! You're on the ground! Turn around! Turn around! Cooperate! Stop resisting! Stop resisting! Sir, you're on video. As FYI. Alright. Fine. I got cuff. Yes, this is my vehicle, sir. I was trying to fix something on the roof. Okay. I have evidence to that end.
Well, when we tell you to get down, you got to get down.
Yes,
man.
sir. I understand.
Okay.
Now, why am I being put in the handcuffs?
We got to verify the car is not stolen, man.
This is E4. I'm a PhD student at Northwestern University in the Department of Materials Science and Engineering. I purchased this vehicle January 23rd, 2015 from Libertyville Chevrolet. I have all the evidence.
Ask me who it registers to.
Myself.
It registers. 73.
370.
Can you tell us who the plate registers to?
I don't know why I'm being arrested. I didn't matter. Gave you orders.
10 for Echo Lawrence Crosby, 507 William Parker.
You did. No, I did not. There is something called the Fifth Amendment. No.
Oh, God. That doesn't apply.
Yes, it does.
No, it doesn't.
Reasonable search and seizure. Why?
Hey, what's up?
Hi, I called.
506.
Okay.
It looked like he had a bar in his hand and was trying to jimmy it open.
Okay.
I feel really like I didn't mean to like racial profile. Just like
Oh yeah, no.
like that,
Right.
and I don't want to like.
All right, man. Calm down.
I know.
Okay.
I just.
All right. He got a different issue going on right now. Let me see. Dan, want to get your information?
Yeah. No. Yeah. But
Okay.
I can give it to you.
Okay.
All right, and we back on the forecast. Now, at some point, if anything is ever going to change, our people is going to have to unify based on the circumstances that we are in, and what we call ourselves is really irrelevant. Racism may be a social construct that is made up, but believe me, it is very real. Enough people believe in it that it is very real. Now, I'm not saying all white people are racist, but my theory is that, especially in America, there are enough racist people that, for instance, if a white lawyer or a white judge or somebody would come up and propose legislation to say we should have all white juries from now on and base it completely off the O.J. Simpson case, I'm pretty sure that if it was put to vote, white America would vote to approve an all-white jury for everybody. Hell, a judge who had a black defendant who was on trial with the all-white jury got in trouble for suspending that jury because it was all-white and forced to apologize to a guy who advocates for all-white juries. And that was okay. He was suspended without pay. They have learned to get rid of tribalisms, to come together for the whole of their community as the white race. We have to learn to get rid of our tribalism, to come together as a whole for the black race, the black community. And as always, man, we have got to start standing for something, or we're going to keep falling for anything.